Hi everybody, it's Thursday and that means it's demo day here at Now You're Cooking. It's kind of a cold, windy, blustery day today, so it's a perfect day for ramen. And fortuitously, we have Chris Toy here and he's going to be making a couple of recipes from his new book, Ramen Made Simple. Now when I say new book, it's not actually the newest book because as of today, we have the Veggie Forward Stir Fry book that just came out. In addition to his oldies but goodies, 30-minute stir fry and easy Chinese. And you can get all four of these books here at Now You're Cooking. They're all already signed by the author. However, we are also going to have Chris here on our Spring into Summer event in our tent over on the Customs House lawn. And you can buy a book without anything in it and he will personalize it for you. If you already have books and you'd like him to sign it or make it more personal, feel free to bring those in too. That is on May 15th from 10 to 2. We'll be out in our tent on the Customs House lawn, hopefully weather permitting. It'll happen anyway, regardless of the weather, so keep that date in mind. And here's Chris to make us some yummy hot ramen.
All right, fantastic. It's good to be back.
Good to have you.
There we go. So I'm going to be doing a couple of recipes from my ramen book, and you should feel free to make any changes that you want. One of the rules that I have in the ramen book is that there are no rules except for a couple, and I'll kind of talk about those today. So we're going to get started right away. The first thing we're going to start with is going to be this special boiled salted egg called ajitama, and it's really a hoot. So we're going to start off by boiling some eggs, but we're going to be really careful not to overboil them. So we want them to be hard on the outside but soft on the inside. So let's start with, we've got some boiling water going here, and I'm just going to demonstrate with a couple eggs here. And later when we're peeling them, there's actually it matters how old the egg is for peeling. The older the egg is, the easier it is to peel. The newer the egg, the fresher the egg, the harder it is to peel. So, keep this in mind. The dark egg is the older egg. And we're going to put that in. We've got the water boiling. And we've got the newer egg is the light egg. So we're going to put those in very carefully, and we're going to time this for about 8 minutes. So I'm going to kind of pay attention here. I'll try to pay attention and not go too far. What we're going to do is we're going to boil it for 8 minutes, and then we're going to immediately put them into ice water, which will stop the cooking process so that the heat doesn't continue into the egg to get that yolk hard. We want it to really to stay soft. So while that's happening, I'm going to start making something called the tara. And the tara is the actual flavoring that goes into the ramen. Ramen consists of 4 things: the noodles, the soup, the flavoring, which is the tara, and toppings. So we'll be going over those as we make our bowl of ramen. So we're going to make the tara simply by adding some flavorings. And we're going to kind of warm those up together into a thick sauce. So we'll start with some soy sauce. You can hear that little sizzle there. That was 2 tablespoons, by the way, if you're measuring. And a 1/4 cup of mirin wine, which is a sweet rice wine, Japanese rice wine. That's a 1/4 cup. that we've got right there. And to that, we're going to add miso, which is a fermented soybean paste. So it has lots of umami in it. And the mellowest type of miso is yellow or white miso. So the lighter the color of the miso, the more mellow it is. So let's put in, that's a 1/4 cup of miso, which will thicken that right up. And this is on a very low simmer. So let me get a non-metal spoon for stirring this.
And I just want to jump in and say we have soy sauce, we have mirin, we have sesame oil here. We do not sell the miso, but you can get that right down the street at Bath Natural Market.
Yep. Yes, natural food stores have those, but you can also get it at the grocery store. They have it now. All right, so we're just going to kind of get this mixed in, and while that's getting mixed in, we're going to make a paste with it. There we go. And to that, we're going to add some ginger and garlic. And you can use fresh ginger and garlic, which is what I prefer. However, if you go out and get some pureed ginger and garlic, you can usually get it now in tubes. That's totally fine. You cannot use dried ginger and garlic. They're a little bit bitter. So these are kind of sweet. So let's get our ginger and garlic in there. My favorite way for doing ginger and garlic is simply to take the side of a cleaver and just turn it into a paste, just like that. There we go. And some fresh ginger. We'll just cut that so that the grain is really short, and we'll pulverize that. There we go. And then there we go. And we'll just take that and we'll add that to our tara. And we're going on 6 minutes on the eggs, just so you'll know I'm paying attention. Turn this down a little bit. Of course, I get carried away there. So it's now a paste, and it's for flavoring. We'll talk about a little bit of that later. But so this is going to be very strong. This is not something that you're just going to pop into your mouth. What it will do is it will flavor the broth. And we'll talk about the broth in a minute. All right, there we go. The tara. So I'm going to shut that right off. And normally what you would do with the tara is the longer you can make this in advance, the better it will be, because all of those flavors will combine. But I wanted to start that at the beginning so that by the time we get to putting the bowl of noodles and broth together, these flavors will be combined. All right. So we'll just set that aside, and we'll be good there. All right. So we've got a couple minutes on the eggs, so I'm sliding over now to the noodles. And ramen noodles, if you can buy them dried, and you can also buy them fresh, kind of packaged in a store, or you can make them at home. There's one secret ingredient, special ingredient, and that's this carbonated water, not carbonated, but carbonate water. And in Chinese or Japanese, it's called kan sui. and it's an alkaline water. And what it does is it interacts with the gluten in the flour, and it makes it more firm. So for the noodles. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a tablespoon of consui into a cup of flour. If you can use bread flour, that's the best because it has a lot of protein. And to that mixture, we're going to add some salt. All right, and we're going to just mix this in. There we go. So make sure that's mixed in. And what happens, and you'll see this in a minute, the consui turns the flour a little bit yellow almost immediately, and that yellow will get stronger as we add liquid. So we're going to take advantage now of our hot water. So it's been 7 minutes. So what I'm going to do is we are going to take our egg out. This is the older egg. I'm reminding myself. This is ice water right here. And here's our newer egg. And we're going to put that in. And we're just going to let the ice water do its thing. All right. I don't know if you can see or not, but we've used our liner for our ice cream maker to make the ice water. But if you just have ice and water, that would be good. Just have that ready to go. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this warm water, hot water, and we're going to use this to make our dough. What we want to do is we want to be really careful not to put in too much of water. What we're going to do is we want the texture of the dough to be uncooked couscous. So little pellets. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So we're going to start off. Oh, actually we have these cool. There we go. So it should take for a cup of flour, it should take something less than 1/4 of a cup of water. So I'm going to start with like 1/8 of a cup, just to be careful here. All right. And so we'll put that hot water in, and let's just pulse this. There we go. So let's take a look. And I just want to show you again. See how yellow it is compared with the flour? That's because of the consui water. Okay. So we're going to add a little bit more. So I want it to be small pellets. These are a little too small, but also when I reach in and grab this, I want this to form a very stiff dough. So it's not doing that. It's still too dry. So, but now I'm going to be pretty careful. I think I'm going to add like a tablespoon at a time, because if I add too much, I'm going to end up, adding more, and we'll end up with 20 pounds of dough before I get it right if I'm not patient. So I'm going to go a tablespoon at a time. Let's turn this on. Here's our hot water. And if it forms a ball, it means that I've added too much, way too much. So we'll just be very patient. I think one more tablespoon here. All right, let's take a look here. Getting pretty close here. Again, there's the texture. See, it's coarser, and there it does have a distinct scent to it. So yeah, see how it's not sticking to me, but it is forming this dough. All right. So that's feeling pretty good. And I can see there's a little bit of moisture that's kind of around the blade. So see, it's sticking to me now. I did that around the blade. So I'm going to pulse this a couple more times and I think we'll be ready. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. So now, ideally, you would let this sit for maybe a half an hour or so, and I would let it sit in the tub here. But you can if you're in a hurry and you haven't planned well, you can get away with starting to roll this out immediately, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. But I'm also going to take advantage of some other things I have to do to let that just rest a little bit, and that just lets the gluten form. All right, so I'm going to reserve this water. This water is going to be used to cook the noodles. And now I'm going to take my tara and I'm going to take that out of here to set that aside. So you got that paste. There we go. All right, I'll use a chopstick here just to scrape that. Knowing that my pasta dough is improving every minute. All right, so that's good. And what I'm going to add to this pan now, I'm only cheating just a little bit. So there's just a little bit of tara left in here, but we're going to be using the tara to flavor the broth. And I'm just going to use this to heat up the broth now. And this is a shortcut. This is better than bouillon chicken broth, which is a very tasty chicken broth. If we were at home making chicken broth, what we would do is we would get a chicken carcass, and we'd basically break that down, and even some people even snap the bones and things like that, and we would boil those bones with some ginger and garlic and seaweed, maybe some wine to make a broth. But what we're going to do is just warm this up. There we go. All right. So we've got our tara, which is one part. We've got our broth going here. And we've started a little bit on our toppings. So let's talk a little bit about the toppings. Lots of different toppings. They're really only limited by your imagination. The egg, the ajitama egg, is kind of the the traditional topping. If you're really lazy, what you can do is you can simply boil your broth, and you can actually just drop some poach some eggs in it, and that would be pretty tasty too. It's one of my midnight snacks. All right. So the toppings, a couple toppings that we'll be using today. We're going to use some thinly sliced ham. So you could, go to the deli, get some cold cuts, and just slice them into thin pieces, just like that. And we're also going to use some shredded carrots. And I like to use a julienne peeler for this. And so we'll just make some julienne carrots. There we go. If you have one of those spiralizers, you could use that as well. All right. So, a couple toppings. So let's go over to our egg now. It's been cooled off, and I'll just kind of explain that to you. Try not to fall. All right. So let's see, we said the older egg was the dark one. All right, so let's take this egg and let's find out if this is going to work. There we go. All right, so far so good. So once we've got this peeled, we have two options, and I can tell this is cooked perfectly because I can feel it's still soft on the inside. So we can use it just the way it is, cut it in half, and I'll show you the inside, how it's different from a regular hard-boiled egg. So here we go. And you should either use a very sharp knife, or you can use a wire to cut it. You wrap the wire around it and pull it, and it'll cut it nicely. If you use a dull knife, it'll squish it. All right, so this is a sharp knife. So that's exactly what you're looking for. See how it's creamy on the inside? All right, so we could use this right away. We'll just put that, as a topping in the soup. However, the cool thing to do is to marinate it overnight, up to 3 days. And what you want to do is you'll take your egg and you'll basically submerge it in a mixture of soy sauce, mirin wine, and sugar. You can add other things as well. You could add oyster sauce. You could put in a spicy oil or something like that if you want it to be spicy. But this one is just marinated in soy sauce and the mirin wine. And what you'll get after a day of marinating is you'll get this creamy inside. You'll see that the salt has penetrated into the egg white, and it's actually been absorbed by the yolk. See how the yolk has gotten a little bit darker? And that makes this yolk salty and sweet and winey. So it's pretty tasty. So
I can attest to that.
yes. And so you can kind of see the difference here. And you know, if you don't like salt and you don't like wine and you don't like that flavor, you could just use it like this right out of the ice water. All right, so let me just turn our broth down a little bit, and I'm going to turn up our boiling water. There we go. All right. We'll experiment with this one later. This is the new one. We'll see if it's really more difficult to peel. All right. But just timing that, you know, for 7 or 8 minutes. By the way, if you have a jumbo egg, you've got to cook it longer, right? The bigger the egg. So like, you know, for a size up, like add a minute. If you go medium egg, you got to drop it down. Otherwise, you're going to hard boil. So you're going to have to, you might have to experiment a little bit. But for now, let's have some fun here with our dough. All right. So we're going to start this on wide. We're going to actually use our pasta roller as a way of kneading the dough. So ideally what we do is we would knead this dough, you know, for maybe 10 minutes or so. But what I have found is that the pressure that the roller can put on the dough is much higher than the pressure that that kneading can do. But so this is and this is a very stiff dough, so it's very difficult to manipulate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to form a cylinder with this, and I'm going to flatten it. There we go. So here we go. So at first it's going to crack, and if it doesn't smooth out, it will mean that I've got to use a little bit more liquid, which will be easy to do with the processor. But this is a nice. So see, here we go. So we're going to fold that in half, and we're going to put it through again. So this is literally kneading the dough. But those rollers, they're putting on hundreds of pounds of pressure on that dough. So it very quickly brings that dough together, smooths it out. So we're going to skip a few here. And you really need to have a high quality roller here because there's a lot of pressure. There we go. And we're going to go skinnier even. Okay, you can see how dry. See, so there's those. It's made of some rips, but that's okay. We're not too worried yet. It's just going to continue. Whoa, I don't know. Now we're a little worried. Let's go one more time. I'll put this here. Yeah, I'm going to back off one more time. That line is where I change the thickness. One more. Here we go. So you don't be afraid to go backwards if you need to. And I see my water is boiling over there, which is great. All right. So let's cut these. I'm going to make these thin noodles. So I'll just put those right in. They're a little bit dry. So let's do this since we have time. Yep, thank you. All right. I'm just going to add maybe a teaspoon, and we'll put this through again. There we go. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right. See? No worries. No worries. So let's put that in. Let me grab a little bit of water. Now I'm going to go with a teaspoon. One more. Okay. All right. Yeah, this feels good too. Yeah, we want to be careful reaching into this machine. Okay, so this is a little bit wetter. All right. Okay. Can we put maybe another cup of water into the boiling water? That way it's boiling a little longer than I expected. All right, so let's try this one more time. All right, I'm going to get this out of my way. There. Okay. Open it wide. Great. Again, using that the pressure to knead that dough. So if you don't have consoy and you can't make your trip to the Asian markets in Portland, you could have a couple options. One thing you can do is you can actually make your own consoy powder by spreading some baking soda onto a cookie sheet, and you can bake it in the oven at about 350 degrees for half an hour. And that baking actually will change that sodium bicarbonate, which is what baking soda is, into a sodium carbonate. So I guess some kind of a chemical change occurs and you end up with a completely different compound. And if you don't want to do that, you can also simply make egg noodles. There we go. So that's smoothing out. There. All right. So we'll go one more here. Put this through. No. It's not behaving, is it? Okay. We'll go one more time, and then we'll cut our noodles. All right. Okay. There we go. All right. So there's our noodles. So when you're going to cook these, you want to make sure that your water is boiling briskly, because you are only going to want to cook these for like a minute, the fresh noodles. So we'll get those. We've got our broth going. That's great. So what's going to happen is we're going to cook our noodles, and this is a pretty quick process. We're going to cook our noodles. We have our broth will be boiling, and what we'll do is we'll put our ingredients in, and then we'll put our broth in, and then we'll put our toppings on.
Do you want to use mushrooms?
Oh, I forgot about the mushrooms. All right, let's do those. And what we'll do with the dried mushrooms is we're going to add them to the broth, because they'll add that umami flavor. All right, so we'll just gently add these guys. And these are pre-sliced, which is great. And these are shiitakes. And they'll literally take 2 minutes to reconstitute themselves. So those are going to be ready. All right. Thanks for that reminder. All right. So here we go. Noodles. Boiling water. And when we put them in, we want to give them a quick stir. There we go. All right. And so literally like a minute or so. And we'll add into our bowl. And the kind of bowl you want is you want one that's kind of shallow but has steep sides. So we'll put in just a touch of our tara. That's our flavoring. All right. And our noodles. All right. All right, here we go. So let's put in some carrots. And if there's something crispy like this, I'll usually put them in the bottom so that the hot broth will kind of soften them up a little bit. There we go. And some of our ham. There we go. And oh, you know what? Let's cut up some scallions just for the top. There we go. All right. All right. So here's our noodles. Oh, this will be interesting. Oh, I know what to do. There we go. Normally I'm not tethered. I can run over to the sink. All right. So there's our noodles. All right. And we'll just put those noodles right in. And let's put our ajitama eggs. I'm going to use the fancy eggs. There we go. And here's our broth. There we go. And let's put our not onions, our mushrooms. Whoop. There we go. And let's put in just a little bit more ham over on our ham side. And a couple more of these guys over here. And what I like to do with the scallions is I slice them up, but I give them a little squeeze just to bruise them. Just get them. There we go. All right. So now.
Seaweed?
Yes, the wakame.
I'm just here to keep you on task.
Yes,
Chris.
absolutely. Okay. So wakame is dried seaweed, and it adds a little bit of umami flavor. And depending on how you like them, if you add them at the end, they'll be a little crispy. But if you like them to be softer, you can add them at the very beginning. But you don't have to add much, by the way. It's just a sprinkling. Some other things you could put in is you could add a little bit of flavoring oil. So a little bit of sesame oil. You could use spicy or not so spicy, depending on what you like. It gives it a nice nutty flavor. So now, it's kind of a pretty bowl.
It's gorgeous.
And so the way you eat is you actually have a spoon and you have your chopsticks. And what you'll do is you'll grab some noodles and some soup and some toppings, and you'll use the spoon to bring it all to your mouth.
And slurp.
And slurp. Loudly. Meanwhile, you can take your egg. And this is where it's good to not have a big egg, but you can just
That looks like a beautiful and tasty end for a day like today, where there's all the cold wind.
It is good. It is good. So there you have it. Just some homemade ramen. You can get the instructions in our book, or
He
you
says
can.
our, but it's really his.
There you go. Or just watch the video and keep putting it on pause. But the book will be a lot easier.
Book will be a lot easier. And don't forget to bring your books to the Spring into Summer event on May 15th, or come and buy a book there. We'll see Chris. We'll have a tent sale going on. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, we've got Mike making crepes. I think he's going to do some savory and some sweet. And the week after that, I'm going to be making some tiramisu. So we hope you will join us for the next few weeks, and we'll see you soon.
Have fun.